with artificial intelligence, we're able to develop solutions way faster than we're able to in the past. And that's going to drive drastic change in how we do business.
This man's the founder and CEO of the Engineered Innovation Group, Jake Miller.
I want to see this not as a threat, but as an opportunity. With that said, if we are going to thrive, we need to be leaders in that space. So we need to drive the change that we know is going to come, so we become experts in it. The breakthroughs in how we can train the models behind large language models is allowing the general population to push the boundaries versus just experts in those spaces.
I'm talking to Jake Miller from the Emerging Technologies Group. He's the CEO, the founder. And today, again, we will talk about AI because it's such an important topic, but we also talk about innovation and how software companies are built or will be built in the future, what Jake is doing with his company, helping software businesses. And hey, Jake, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
But before we start, maybe tell the audience a couple of words about yourself, what you're doing with emerging technologies, and what's your mission.
So I've been in technology for a couple decades now. I'm a software engineer myself. I don't get to write as much code these days unless I'm doing a little bit of prototyping and just kind of trying to stay a little bit sharper. But I started the Engineering Innovation Group a couple years ago for a very important mission, at least I feel it is, to help startups start up. And what we've found is our ability to help those organizations drive innovation and push the boundaries beyond just conventional technology has been a bit of our secret sauce. And I think it is rooted in my own experience and several of my team members in more complex and sophisticated technology, which I can go into a little bit later. And what we've also found is not only do startups benefit from our method of not only building software, but helping them build out their entire software organization, is mid-market and enterprises also need services that we provide, because often they have digital products, but they're not software companies. They have IT groups, but they're not product companies. And so we serve as their software company behind the scenes, which is really fun.
So basically extended workbench for the whole development tasks.
Yeah, and there's a little difference there. We don't do StatBox or conventional outsourcing. We are embedded. So we're a software team. So we have product managers, project managers, software engineers, of course, quality assurance, security compliance, everything you would expect from a software company versus just renting out engineers. So that's a little special way of differentiating for us, but it's very, very effective.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, this is the biggest challenge the founders have. They have this idea and they want to get something to the market, but they obviously often don't have the team. They might not have the funding to hire a team. So they need to outsource this. This is their initial idea. Okay, I hire a few people. But then there are certainly pitfalls by outsourcing or hiring individuals. Yeah. And this is why you come in place. What is the biggest challenge when you say, oh, I just outsource my development to an offshore, maybe an even offshore development company somewhere in a low price area?
Yeah, what we find is there are a couple things. First is what you just mentioned, time to market. So by us bringing the product expertise, and especially working with VC-backed startups where those venture studio groups are trying to find founders, and that can take 3 months, 4 months, and then they need a technical co-founder, and then they get the product. By the time they actually hit something in market, it could be 6 months to a year. And we wanted to shorten that to 3 months. That's typically our goal, is within 3 months to have something in market. And because we do this every day, we've helped about 20 software companies in the past 2 years so far. We know all the boilerplate stuff. You need login, you need infrastructure, you need quality assurance. Like, we don't want founders to think about that. We want them to think about what's really setting them apart, what's really their product. And that's been great. I think another challenge organizations fall into is exactly what you're saying about outsourcing, especially if they're going offshore or nearshore, is those organizations, as I have found, typically are more of an outsource model. So they're executing a plan, but that plan has to be very well articulated by the founder. And the founder often isn't a product person, and so they have a difficult time building a roadmap and driving the build. And that's a big disconnect, which is what we solve as well.
Are you specialized in for certain industries, certain topics?
Yeah, we started out
sweet spot?
industry agnostic, because again, the founders we work with, or now the mid-sized enterprises, they're experts in their domain. So we're able to dive in and learn from them and drive roadmap. We have super talented product people. But we have found in the mid-market, at least, our target and where we are really shining is healthcare and health tech. So we work with a couple organizations. One is super interesting. It's a kidney biopsy company, and it has a really interesting and innovative ways to bring their digital product to market that some of their competitors aren't doing, that we've had the pleasure to help drive and build as well. So healthcare has been a lot of fun, and there's just so much opportunity there, especially in the States with how screwed up our healthcare system is, in my opinion. I like to tell our team, I kind of want to poke that healthcare bear in marketing and just be like, come on, do better. This is BS. This is just completely terrible, especially as a patient in the healthcare world.
Yeah, from my observation from Europe, I mean, you have a lot of innovation in healthcare, a lot of amazing companies really testing the boundaries on longevity and everything. But on the other hand, you have a system, a health insurance system, which is really screwed. That's interesting, these differences. The gap when you have the money, you can buy almost everything on the planet. But for the normal patient, it's certainly a challenge. No?
Yeah, the accessibility is very hard for a lot of folks paying for those services. They're not cheap. Something that we realized recently that I thought was a great insight by our VP of Healthcare Innovation here was the service of billing insurance companies that health service providers provide was never intended to be the case. It was these big healthcare companies and physicians learned, we're going to provide this service for billing the insurance companies on behalf of our patients just to make it a convenience. But then what's happened is there's this incongruency in power and really just the power structure between healthcare systems, physicians, insurance companies, but the patient is actually bearing the burden of all of that. You know, I think it's super sad that, and I hope I'm not on too much of a soapbox here, but I think it's super sad that the insurance companies very often get to drive healthcare decisions for people. I mean, that's just outrageous to me. It's, in my opinion, it's none of my insurance company's business what my healthcare, needs are, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So, but there is so much emphasis, even by big companies, on changing the dynamic, providing services that aren't even driven by these healthcare systems. For example, I had a sleep study done because suspecting sleep apnea. Well, I didn't have to go to my normal healthcare physician or provider for that. I went to a standalone organization that specializes in that. I could pay out of pocket, bill it back to an insurance company. That's a pretty cool model, I think. Like, I get to choose those providers, and it's more affordable because they specialize.
Completely agree. Also, I mean, you are well informed and you know what you look for. Probably a lot of people, they are not, and they need more guidance in choosing services and need more push towards the direction.
Yeah.
So what are a couple of examples of solutions you develop? If you can share a few problems do they solve in the healthcare industry?
Yeah. So one that is incredibly interesting to me is directed towards healthcare pharmaceutical companies, but they also serve multiple industries. And this is in the AI space. One of the things that these founders realized was the large language models are fantastic tools. There's a lot of experimentation happening around in these enterprises. The enterprises, especially in healthcare, are very reticent to allow their employees to interact with them, especially when they're external models that those organizations can't control for obvious reasons, like patient health information, data leakage. There's just huge risk there. And so this company was very interested in building a layer that sat between the employees of these organizations and external large language models to filter out proactively patient health information, private information, so that those models can perform more accurately, but it's tokenized. So they're getting the benefit, but also of experimentation and learning how to operationalize those models to improve business process, while also ensuring privacy is protected. Pretty cool. So that's one. But it's a partnership. So obviously they were bringing their expertise in-house, but we were providing a lot of research and development in how would you actually do that technologically in a cost-effective way that these big enterprises can deploy fairly easily. So that was a lot of fun. Another example is probably this kidney biopsy company that specializes in very specific kidney diseases. And their model is providing those results to physicians directly to mobile devices very quickly, a 24-hour turnaround. So instead of it being a biopsy gets sent out, it takes a week to get results. The physician has to go through their big, Cerner or Epic, which are two of the leaders in EHRs. They kind of bypass that in a way that is acceptable, still private, still secure, but much faster for the physician to serve the patient. So that was a lot of fun as well. So kind of pushing the boundaries on these things.
And I mean, you also create an impact, a positive impact in the world. You not just create software, you're really helping to solve real problems. You mentioned AI, and we briefly touched in our pre-discussion on AI, and you said something very important. You said, okay, a couple of years ago, we had blockchain, sort of an NFTs, and which I never really understood. Why do you pay $100,000 for a digital and non-fungible token? But this is sort of died down, I mean, you hardly hear anything about blockchain anymore. A lot of companies went out of business, and it's really quiet. And now everyone is talking about AI. But we both agreed that the adoption of AI is still very low, or people are very wary. They watch and see how this is developing. And many of them probably think, another one of those hypes, everyone is talking about. It will die down, and then we go back to normal. And the interesting thing is, people who are really into the topic, they really believe that this is a groundbreaking change. I mean, this is something which will not go away because the change is so significant and so fundamental, and it touches so many aspects of human life, of personal life, but also of business life. And this is the interesting dilemma, I think, humanity is in, or businesses are in. They wait, and with every day they wait, the gap widens between a company who adopt AI and who leverage it to people and companies who wait and wait and see. And how can we explain that? Or what do you think is the reason why businesses are so hesitant at the moment?
I actually think the reason folks are most hesitant is their risk management. They're concerned about the data privacy implications, and they're concerned about the accuracy implications, because trusting a technology that isn't necessarily proven in many business use cases, but is promising in those use cases, is kind of scary. Who wants to take the first step into that? And which is why we see a lot of these privacy laws. The EU just passed the act that, I forget the exact name of it, which I think is admirable and exciting. It worries me a little bit on stifling innovation, but I completely understand the states will probably do something similar, but which is probably wise. But I think that's a big concern. The other concern, I think, is there's wariness about the interaction between those and between like LLMs, artificial intelligence in general. So I'll give you an example. We're trying to push, there are two examples. I believe AI is a true existential threat to my company. Why? Because half of my company are software engineers, and we build software. I do believe in the next 5 years, software engineers' jobs are going to drastically change. It's going to go from me typing on a keyboard, rule-based, deterministic programming, to training those models. And they're what we call non-deterministic now. So the input I provide no longer guarantees the same output every time I input it. So that's a cultural and paradigm shift on how we're used to working and interacting with computers. I think the human computer interaction paradigm is going to shift again from the normal user typing things in or relying on an IT team to connect different systems to a dictation to our computers or our digital colleagues. Hey, I have this business problem. What's the best way to solve it? Suggestion comes back. Oh, can you connect these two systems? And can you get the data in this format? Yes, I can do that for you. And then our systems are smart enough to implement those. So poof, jobs go away.
So we need more business knowledge.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You need more business knowledge and less technical knowledge, because the technical knowledge will be provided by the bot.
That's right. There's also an interesting parallel to mRNA. So bear with me first. So COVID, mRNA technology, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I know enough to be dangerous. mRNA was being studied prior to COVID, but the big breakthrough was, hey, the way that we can build vaccines for viruses has drastically changed. Much easier to do now, and it's faster to develop those. And I think it's analogous or parallel in AI, where the breakthroughs in how we can train the models, specifically with deep learning and the models behind large language models, is allowing the general population to push the boundaries versus just experts in those spaces. So we're able to develop solutions way faster than we're able to in the past. And that's going to drive drastic change in how we do business.
What is your team saying? You speak quite openly about the change, which will most likely happen. How do you manage this on a day-to-day basis? How do you still empower and motivate your people, and how do you give them a future?
It's about inspiring, in my perspective. I want the team to see this not as a threat, but as an opportunity. With that said, if we are going to thrive, I'm not going to say survive, I'm going to say thrive, we need to be leaders in that space. So we need to drive the change that we know is going to come, so we become experts in it. And that really motivates the team, because we get to be on that forefront of experimentation. And we're going to fail, we'll be successful, but that we hire team members here that are incredibly curious and not afraid of change. We're very intentional when we hire people in. We say, if you want a job where you're, specifically our engineers, if you want a job where you come in, you get instructions, you're going to write that code, you're going to output it, and follow the same paradigm, this is not the place for you.
I created a community, AI mastery movement, where basically I empower my community members to leverage what is there and don't see it as a threat, to see it as an opportunity to create value with it. You've already heard this many times, and I heard this many times, but I think the statement is true. AI won't replace us, at least not now, but the person who's leveraging AI will replace the person who's not leveraging AI, not using it.
Yeah.
So also for developers, if there's so many ways to create value and to use what is there, and create even more amazing software with it, this is the way they should see it, and they should approach this topic and not just be afraid and think, okay, the world is going to end for me.
Yeah. I encourage our customers to think about this as a tool to first replace low value tasks.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not the first to, say that, but that starts helping people disarm that fear, because people just naturally are fear of change to the unknown. And I think that there will be jobs that disappear or drastically change, this isn't a precedent. This has happened several times in the past.
Yep.
In fact, in States, what's super interesting, there are codes for professions. And some of those are outdated, but there's for example, a secretary, right? Secretarial jobs are becoming way less common. I mean, executive assistants is a different thing, but secretarial jobs, are kind of arcane now. And if one files for unemployment, they're required to find a job that fits one of those
Codes.
codes. But so many of those codes don't exist anymore. So how can we expect people to then find employment in those? And so it's not new. We still have that same problem. We just have to figure out what's the thing that we need to upskill and reskill folks in the workforce to fill those new jobs. The state I live in, Indiana, the Midwest, is been very proactive. I'm very proud of our leadership here. Very proactive in figuring out what are the roles. Like manufacturing is big in Indiana. What do we need to do to upskill folks when robotics and AI starts replacing a lot of those tasks, like it already has, frankly? And we don't know all the answers yet, but we're figuring it out.
And I always say, I mean, there's so much opportunity. First of all, there's so much opportunity. And then there's also so many different ways you can do certain things, even in AI. I mean, I'm mentoring companies. I help them implement AI in their businesses. And I have a customer and the CEOs are 20 odd, 20, 22. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm more than half my age. Yeah. Yeah. And those guys are also software developers, they have an amazing product. And then I help them implement AI in their business. Yeah. And they said to me, "Oh, Sebastian, you're really living in the future, right?"
Yeah.
So because I had this idea, I said, okay, you use this for marketing, you use that for accounting. This is how you generate your leads and your sales. And even they are in the tech space, but even they don't know everything, So everyone can create value. You don't need to be afraid that everything is available now. Everything is available for everybody, but there's so much that you have to cut through the noise. You have to really see what is working, what creates value, and what is just noise. So I think there's so much opportunity. And if you are skilled, if you are open-minded, curious, don't stop learning. And there's enough to do. And also for teams, there's plenty of opportunity in the future.
Absolutely. When we talked about blockchain earlier, and we worked on several blockchain projects, and we're very careful with customers to say, don't go to blockchain. And this was last year and the prior years. Don't choose blockchain as a technology to solve the problem just because it's the thing right now. And I would say 90% of the folks that came to us with the blockchain concept, those problems were solvable by conventional platforms or tech stacks. Why do I bring this up? Because in my opinion, blockchain was searching for problems to solve. And that's why I think it fizzled out, was because where the market has landed is it's pretty good for things like implementing chain of provenance and, let's say, music or the arts. So it's very good for those use cases. But there were a lot of others that people can understand. One, because it's just so complex. The average person had a hard time understanding it. I think inversely with artificial intelligence, what folks are able to do is find a business problem to solve and then use the technology to solve it. So it's a lot easier for people to grok or understand or identify what are the problems I have that could be solved by this technology solution, which is why I believe we're not going to see the die down or momentum with the advancements of AI technology. It's only going to increase because the average person can understand it.
I mean, at the moment, it's increasing on a daily basis. Yeah, I mean, every day, literally, you can't keep track of. No.
Yeah, I subscribe to like 20 newsletters, and I love all of them because it's like consolidating what I need to know on a daily basis. But boy, it's so hard.
I use an AI tool to consolidate the AI news.
I should probably do that. Practice what I preach here, right?
It's a interesting time we live in right now. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but since the release of ChatGPT a year ago, it's like an exponential curve. So much happening. I think it's a movement we cannot stop.
The genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't put it back in. And I think that's, again, because it's so accessible even by a layman, that's why it's not going to go away, is anyone that's curious has access to it. And so that's why it's hard to stop, in my opinion. Another topic that is relevant, folks, I also believe, become concerned about generalized artificial intelligence. Like, when's it going to happen that true reasoning and, superseding human intelligence is going to happen. It probably will. But what we need to understand right now is the way things like ChatGPT work is it's just a massive statistical model. It's saying, based on the context that I have, what's the most likely word to come next. Yeah, right? And so that's actually, while it's sophisticated, it's still kind of stupid. There's kind of a magic that's being created around it, and it's incredibly useful, but it is very far from replacing human intelligence.
It's a supportive tool. You still need to think, but it speeds up your thinking and your creation process. This is the fantastic use case. And also using it to do some role plays, you have a solution and then say, okay, how would XYZ react to that? So you tell the system, okay, now you act as a whatever role you want to play with. And then based on their knowledge and all the content, the system indexed, it can up with some statistical relevant answers. I mean, you never had something like this before. You could hire a consultant, pay a lot of money, but then still you only get his point of view.
It's a collaborator. And one thing that a lot of my team members, including myself, have noticed, the primary use case that we're currently using these tools for internally, and there are a lot more that we're implementing, but the very first use case was collaboration. So 2 ways. I have this idea. Can you throw some ideas back? Just like I would brainstorm with another person. That's amazing. It's so much fun and invaluable. The second was I am able to learn things so much faster. So for example, if I want to learn a new programming language, I know several, but I don't know all of them. React front-end development's not my forte, but I wanted to learn React. I was able to get not even just the foundations, but a really deep understanding of how the internals by using ChatGPT. And not only was it able to explain the concepts like what hooks are, it was able to help me understand code, like it wrote code for me. So I can say, well, what would happen if I needed to have, applying imperative code paradigms, a class? Now, well, it's not exactly apples to oranges between React and something like C#. I'm getting a little technical here, but it helped me decipher differences. And if I had done that just by searching the web and finding things on Stack Overflow, that would take a lot longer. So it's just that, like you mentioned earlier, the cycle time to learn and move is just so drastically different.
I just saw a LinkedIn post where someone posted a video of a Chinese girl looking into a phone, and there was an English teaching avatar.
And when you look at the past 10 years of development, natural language processing got a lot of attention just generally. You have video processing, generative AI. You have the voice technologies, like Whisper from ChatGPT being a really popular one where it's becoming way more realistic. We have generative facial expressions and animations, which we're doing a lot of work in. But you bring all those together now and you overlap those. Now you have all sorts of possibilities on how do we interact with avatars. And we're actually building a product right now internally that we have customers on, and we're doing experimentations and some research. And I think it's going to be big.
At the moment, we can just think what could happen, but then you see these solutions popping up, and I said, oh my God.
And who knew, like a little company like mine, in the grand scheme of things, I have 40 employees. We're very new. Luckily, we're a profitable company, but our ability, like 5 years ago, our ability to build something like this would have been very limited. We would have to go get $2, $3, $4, $5 million in funding or raise it somehow. We didn't have to do that, or we're not having to do that, and that, I think that's going to change how businesses, especially small ones, are able to innovate. And what's interesting so I think it was 2006 that Amazon Web Services was officially released. I remember the days too, like everyone has their own server racks, they have to manage their own infrastructure, and that's incredibly expensive. And I worked for a healthcare system and then Salesforce during that kind of big boom. And it took enterprises pretty much a decade to start truly transitioning those big systems over, because there was skepticism. And so I think AI is the same sort of deal. Is the big enterprise. It's going to be the small mid companies that start adopting the technologies a little bit quicker. Is nature of the beast of those companies' ability to The larger the size, the harder to maneuver. But that's, I think that timeline is interesting. And like Azure, Microsoft, and Google, especially Google, were way late to the game. Them trying to get market share on the cloud was very difficult for them.
Oh, look at Microsoft now. I mean, they're in beast mode.
Yeah.
It's been amazing speaking with you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with your audience? Anything interesting you're working on right now?
We're sort of on the lines of what we were just discussing. We've been building what we're calling PETE, the Personalized Empathetic Technology Engine. And the idea behind this is driving avatars, but we're basically building that on top of Unreal Engine. And then we have some proprietary models that we're building in the background to drive more human-like interactions. And we're working with design partners in our network and customers on bringing that to market in ways that solve real problems. So that's something really interesting and fun we're working on. I think it's going to be pretty big. I think a lot of companies are working on the same thing. But I like to tell people, Baskin Robbins has 52 flavors of ice cream, and some people like cherry chip cordial, and some people like Rocky Road. And I think there's plenty of room in the market for several folks to address that or build that and bring it to market in different ways. And I think everyone should pay very close attention to what I mentioned earlier about human-computer interaction. I love to ask people, and I'm going to ask you this, when Siri first came out and we were dictating to everyone, hey, Siri, turn on my lights. I guess that wasn't a feature out of the gate. And Siri's, probably turning on the lights on in my house now. But how did you feel? Was it awkward to you at first to talk to your phone? Or you seem very forward-looking. So perhaps for you, it was very intuitive. But how'd that feel?
It's interesting. Sometimes it feels, or it felt awkward in the beginning. It's a different concept. And of course, it didn't work that well when we started. So you had to repeat a couple of times. And now it's much better, in understanding you and taking the right action.
Yeah. So my experience was that too. Like, I don't talk to my phone. That's super weird. And Siri was designed to be, again, deterministic. Turn on my lights, turn up the volume, very pre-programmed functions. That's going to change. And it's going to take people time to get used to talking to more human-like machines that seem more intelligent. So I'm excited to see the implications for that.
I'm talking to ChatGPT now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just recently I had an idea, and I was on the go, and I said, took the phone and, hey, can you please create a draft for a LinkedIn post, blah, 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 blah. And then I had it in my system, and then I could refine it, edit it, and then send it out, in no time, which was amazing.
It is amazing.
A lot to discover, and thanks so much for sharing all these ideas. I see you have an Oura ring.
Oh, this is actually just a tungsten wedding band, but I do have an Oura ring. I'm just not wearing it today. And I'm super data driven. I have like my Libra Link that tracks my glucose. I got my Apple Watch. Like, I go to the doctor and like, wow, you have all this data. And like,
yeah, the glucose tracking is interesting. I also have, I'm not wearing it regularly, but I have also a system I use. Also, Libra is not available in Europe. So I have basically the diabetes version, which I bought from a diabetes shop, but it does the same. Yeah. Been a great conversation. I think we could talk on for hours, but let's leave it. Maybe have another conversation in half a year, and then we see how the world has changed.
I would love that. That sounds fun.
Maybe our AI bots will have this conversation.
I'll just send my digital clone, and there you go.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.